Tonight we're stepping inside Fairmont Crest, where a single glance sparks a war. Eva's chemistry with Izaiah lights the fuse, while Kat watches from the balcony like a patient hunter, pulling strings to turn romance into leverage. Is Kat orchestrating a rescue or an execution? Will Izaiah trust his instincts or walk into a velvet trap? And can Eva hold her ground when whispers harden into weapons? In this video, we break down the newest episode's power plays, follow the money, connect the receipts, and predict the next twist. No filler, just drama. If you love bold analysis and sharper than satin theories, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and let's dive in. Amid the air heavy with perfume and the lights glinting off Fairmont Crest's lake, the first meeting between Eva and Izaiah was a spark falling into dry hay, catching it once and running down the marble steps, slipping through painting-lined corridors, and ricocheting off the crystal glasses that chimed in the hall. Eva thought it was only a beautiful instant, a current shift that changed her heartbeat's key, a rare signal that the heart had not gone barren after seasons of loss. But at Fairmont Crest, the feeling of safety is always counterfeit. At the edge of the balcony, Kat narrowed her eyes like a hunter who has fixed her sight on prey, the half-smile not from pleasure but from the imagined taste of victory. She recognized an unchanging rule: any romance born in the spotlight can be strangled in the dark by anyone who understands the crowd's breathing and knows how to mold public opinion like a wire-warmed to pliancy. Kat needed no promises, only an eye contact held longer than politeness, a glass of wine traded at the right moment, a compliment poured against the fragile corner of self-regard enough to pick the locks of defenses Eva hadn't yet had time to raise. As Izaiah's name slipped through the whispers by the bar, Kat had already mapped the board. Pull Izaiah into her orbit, force Eva to run at her pace, push the rival to expose a scene through jealousy or pride, then use that seem like a stake to tether Eva's future to a chain of mistakes hard to undo. Kat's anger wasn't simple jealousy, it came from a sense of encroachment, her sphere of influence, the gravitational field of power she had spent years designing, wobbling because of a fleeting glance between Eva and a new man. Keeping it or losing it was sometimes only a matter of rearranging fragments of information, turning a small slip into a collapse. Izaiah entered Fairmont Crest trailed by the shadow of his famous younger brother, a grating reminder wrapped around him. He knew he was under scrutiny, not only for the Hawthorne name but because every new face in this place is a variable in the equation of influence. Eva's attention surprised him, not because he lacked experience, but because he had stepped into an energy that did not try to seize power yet drew the eye anyway. In Eva's gaze he read a streak of resistance, the look of someone who had paid the price for prioritizing the heart and now wanted to learn to prioritize survival. But from the balcony came the taut sensation of being watched. Kat stood there like an exclamation point, silent but overloaded with information, as if she had just sent an invisible signal that he had been placed on someone else's map. Izaiah warned himself to be careful: where the lights are too bright, the shadows are always thick. Eva understood Kat better than most assumed. Her composure was not indifference but a lesson distilled from long nights of reminding herself that every shimmer has a cost. In Izaiah's eyes she glimpsed her own future, not necessarily one of shelter but of understanding. Perhaps here was someone who would not use her as a token to send a message to somebody else. But that sensation, barely born, was pressed down by reflexive defense. Fairmont Crest never lets anyone hold faith for long without extracting payment. Eva's anger did not explode in impulsive acts. It simmered low, directed at herself for allowing her heart to tremble for a moment. She did not want to return to the role of dreamer, but she did not want to turn to stone. Every step she took that night felt like moving toward a hope and treading on a mine of suspicion, because somewhere she could feel the machinery of intrigue starting up. Kat chose a pace slow enough to stay unseen but fast enough to outstrip response. She began with the simplest thing: lowering the curtain of civility. An old PR staffer who owed her a favor, an event manager angling for a hand up, a sponsor seeking a seat on some advisory board, each string tugged toward the same direction. An anonymous tip found its way to a social account that feasted on elite gossip, merely hinting that Eva was hunting a new insurance policy within the Hawthorne ranks. No claims, no accusations, just the planting of a seed of doubt. When that seed dropped into the damp soil of public chatter, it sprouted in the crowd's uglier instinct: suspicion always grows faster than trust. Kat didn't need to speak, she let others do it for her. At the same time, a blurry set of photos arranged beforehand showed Izaiah with a businesswoman, the light, the angle, the hand on the railing, all calibrated to look intimate yet inconclusive, suggesting a discreet arrangement. Once the images appeared, the people already uneasy about Eva supplied the rest of the story, and always in ways unfavorable to her. Kat had only one task left: to remain outside it all, feigning distance from the storm she herself had conjured. Izaiah found himself pulled between two forces: the instinct to trust his first impression of Eva, and the experience that warned him nothing at Fairmont Crest is as it seems. He paused and investigated. Not through conversation, but through numbers, relationship histories, the stifled laughs along the corridors. He looked into the charitable projects Eva had touched, how she secured funding, how she vanished after a flare-up and returned with a new plan. A pattern emerged: this woman did not run, she tended to face forward after auditing her own errors. And yet he also saw invisible fingerprints on recent events: a last-minute schedule change that caused Eva to miss a key donor, a viral post timed exactly when that woman in the photos appeared with him, an offer from Kat to join an advisory board, all kindness on the surface but coincidentally wedge-shaped to slot into the hours Eva had set aside. Dense coincidence as a warning, and he understood he had been ushered into a trial by fire with no announcement. Eva received an unmarked envelope. Inside lay a briefing on an old matter tied to Izaiah, dense notes about a financial mistake from another city in another time. Tearing it open, she saw two roads: keep quiet to protect a tender emotion and hope the storm dissipates, or step out to diffuse it by addressing whatever the past might drag into Fairmont Crest. She chose the second by reflex, the reflex that had kept her alive, but it was the choice that planted her in the eye of the tempest. She drafted a quick defensive media outline, not to strike at Izaiah but to stop rumor from being sharpened into a blade that cut them both. On the other side, Kat had been waiting to spin that into a story of Eva scheming to leverage Isaiah's past to prop up her personal brand. When people only read headlines and the first lines, they care little for the nuance inside. Kat accelerated again, dropping a bit of inside information that a project under Eva's name had misallocated funds, an easy nudge to make outsiders believe she had a habit of offloading risk onto others. The swell of doubt rose, and like every swell at Fairmont Crest, it carried a silted cloud that blurred faces in the middle. Eva was backed against a wall, not by direct accusation, but by a million vague questions, measuring looks, polite nods that felt cold. She could retreat, stepping away from both her sphere and the man who had just sparked a fragile hope, keeping herself from being crushed by the press of opinion. But retreat meant letting Kat define her in front of the crowd. Looking up at the hall ceiling, Eva knew survival here did not allow a withdrawal by silence. She decided to return to the next evening's gala, not dodging, placing herself at the cyclone center to see who would tire first. Izaiah stood between the music and the handshakes at the threshold of choosing sides, the very thing he had sworn to avoid. He could slip into Kat's promising invitation, enter a network ready to clear the path, secure his position without staking it on a precarious feeling. Or he could trust his instincts, take the uninsured road, absorb the misread anger of those who crave control over every variable. His anger now wasn't for Eva or Kat, it was for the fact that he had let himself be drawn into a game where others define people with whispers. He weighed the price of choosing trust, the price of choosing doubt, the price of standing still. At Fairmont Crest, no option is cheap. The next night, Kat staged a perfect scene under the brocade of philanthropy and community ties. Every wire was sealed, each camera set at the exact angle, everyone who needed to be there appeared. Kat believed that one small slip from Eva beneath the public gaze would complete the painting she had sketched: a clout chaser, an opportunist, someone without shame. But Eva stepped in neither overly dazzling nor broken, like a thin blade sheathed in satin, quiet but sharp enough to make anyone who brushed it flinch. She walked straight through the cold stairs, neither dodging nor bowing, and that frankness itself broke the herd rhythm Kat preferred. Kat's pulse ticked up in an irritating graph, and her anger surged just as it had the first time she realized a glance in the hall could leech away her power. She decided to go beyond manipulating opinion and press a finger to Eva's most sensitive nerve, her belief in values she still carried in a place that treated feelings as a luxury commodity. The next push was a sheet of paper, an account number, a copy of a transfer, not a state secret, but enough to plant in outsiders' minds that Eva had blurred the line between charity and calculation. Kat knew a brutal truth: between right and wrong, the crowd chooses the more entertaining story. In that picture, Kat ceased to be the puppeteer and became the defender of order, while Eva was forced into the role of balance breaker, even though she hadn't crossed any true line. Izaiah watched the distortion and understood that unless he personally broke the ring of bad faith, he would be pulled into a part someone else had written. But how do you break it when every move will be interpreted against whoever acts first? The weight of each person's choice condensed into explosive charge. Eva had to decide between retaliation in the Fairmont Crest style or holding to her nature and taking the immediate loss. If she struck back with a revelation aimed straight at Kat, the game would stretch into infinity and her anger would eat her from the inside. If she stayed silent, the other's story about her would harden into fact. Izaiah had to choose between signing onto a plush seat in Kat's machinery or standing to declare a stance easy to label naive. Kat had to ask herself whether she was pushing too hard on a structure already spidered with cracks, or a countershock could rebound and shatter her if someone traced the dense chain of manipulation. Who sent the envelope to Eva right before Kat could make her move? Someone in the shadows eager to ignite the clash, or an unnamed soul trying to pull Eva clear of the trap? How long will staged photos hold when daylight floods past layers of backdrop? And when everyone is forced against the wall, will their ugliest instincts destroy what good remains, or will that cornered instant force to the surface a courage they thought long dead? Night fell like a heavy curtain, hiding nothing but fatigue. Eva knew she might wake to a bleaker canvas tomorrow, knew that if her anger went unresolved it would turn back to bite the heart already crosshatched with scars. She chose to prepare a long-haul route, not too showy, not petty revenge, but the rebuilding of alliances from those who still believed in decency, however few. Izaiah stood at the window, watching a horizon fractured by beams of light, understanding he would lose a few doors if he followed his instincts, and also understanding the cost of a life made only of doors opened by others. Kat returned to her room with a dress without a wrinkle, and inside, a boil of fear of being replaced, fear that someday she would become the gaudy story she'd once manufactured for others. In a world where truth is torn into snippets, who will piece the whole picture back together, and on whose shoulders will the cost of wholeness fall? At Fairmont Crest, questions aren't for answering right away, they hang like chandeliers from the high ceiling, always glittering, always threatening to fall on anyone careless enough to believe they are safe. And that's where we'll leave the lights on at Fairmont Crest tonight, a ballroom full of mirrors and motives, three people circling the same spark from very different angles. Eva stands her ground, refusing to let whispers write her story. Izaiah weighs instinct against opportunity, knowing either choice will close doors, and Kat equal parts strategist and saboteur. Keeps tightening the threads until curiosity becomes suspicion and suspicion becomes a verdict. The question isn't just who wins the next move, it's who's willing to pay the long-term price of it. If Eva counters with transparency, she risks looking defensive. If she stays silent, she gifts the narrative to her rival. If Izaiah backs Kat's network, he gets a shortcut with a toll booth. If he backs his gut, he steps into crossfire with no shield but character. And Kat? Every perfect setup she engineers raises her altitude and her fall distance. Here are the tells I'll be watching: whether the anonymous receipts against Eva keep appearing on the exact nights that benefit Kat's calendar, whether Izaiah's schedule mysteriously collides with Kat's philanthropy circuit while Eva's meetings are nudged just out of frame, and whether a fourth player, someone we're underestimating, has been sliding manila envelopes under doors to accelerate the clash. If a hidden accomplice exists, their goal might not be to crown a winner but to burn the entire board and collect the insurance. Prediction snapshot: the next event won't end with a shouting match, it'll end with a choice that looks polite on the surface and shifts the entire balance. An unexpected photo op, a deliberately declined invitation, a public alignment that forces private consequences. Watch for small gestures: who breaks eye contact first, who steps toward the center of the room, who takes the longer route to the exit to be seen by exactly the right people. In this world, choreography is confession. Your turn. If you were in Izaiah's shoes, do you sign on to Kat's jetstream or bet on Eva's quiet resilience? If you were Eva, do you publish a proactive audit and dare people to read beyond the headline, or do you let silence test who actually knows you? And for Kat stands, where's the line between self-preservation and self-sabotage? Has she already crossed it, or is this still calculated control? Drop your take in the comments with the hashtag #CrestCalculus and tell me which micro-moment changed your mind tonight. If this breakdown gave you fresh angles, hit like, share it with your favorite soap sleuth, and subscribe for deep dive recaps that track power, money, and motive, not just plot. Tap the bell so you don't miss our midweek receipts report, where we map timelines, compare alibis, and flag inconsistencies that could become next week's headlines. Members get the rumor radar and storyboard PDFs, including a clean timeline for Eva, Izaiah, Kat. You can annotate yourselves. Next up on the channel, a spoiler-safe preview of the coming episodes and a theory thread on the mystery courier behind those envelopes: ally, arsonist, or both? Until then, remember, at Fairmont Crest, truth rarely walks through the front door, it slips in through service corridors, leaves fingerprints on the seating chart, and smiles for the camera only when it has already chosen a side. I'll see you in the next one.